Let's pray, and we'll get started. Dear Father in heaven, thank you for the blessings of this day. So much to celebrate and be grateful for in your redemptive work, and how you persist in drawing us near to yourself, in reaching into our lives to bring us to wisdom and to the truth, and most of all to live and thrive because of your grace and restoration, your work among us. So bless our time in your word today, that what we learn will remain with us, and that we'll be inspired to share it with others as we find opportunity for Jesus' sake. Amen. Amen. Bless all who come through this side door. So we're going to get back to what we were working on a while ago, which is Matthew. We started in the Gospel of Matthew, and then lots of things happened, and we've been around some other texts. But let's come back to Matthew, and we'll pick up where we left off, I think, in chapter 8. It's a good place to pick up with anyway, the Matthew chapter. Thanks to Paul, who's recording all this these days, and getting better and more refined about it. So he's able to edit out just a sermon and send it to me, and then that goes on my website, that Word Without Walls website, and then I'm able to also send my notes, the readings and my notes, to go with it, which can be helpful. Especially important today is I retranslated a lot of the lesson from Romans to be more clear. And one of the reasons to do that is because the New Testament English editors will often use a variety of English words for the same Greek word. So it's hard to know that these are actually the same words, or that even that they have anything to do with each other. So when you look at the gospel lesson today in Romans, and it talks about the righteousness of God, and that the righteousness of God it has as one of its features that God justifies us, right? Well, justifies and righteous is the same word. So it would help if it would be consistent, and I did that in this translation that I made, which you can all have access to. Similarly, those three words, faith, believe, or trust, are all the same word, and they all have to do with honesty about our dependence on God. And so when you get to the website and you read this translation, it sounds very different when it's clear that our relationship with God's gracious activity is effective when we're honest about our dependence on it. In other words, when we quit getting in our own way, which has a lot to do with the children's sermon and how I thought about that bucket in both directions. You know, and Aliana is such a sweetheart. She doesn't want to tell me that I'm an idiot or anything negative. So bless her heart.
Pastor, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
The comparison between remission and forgiveness.
Okay. Same
My
thing.
understanding is,
Oh,
my understanding would be the remission is as if it never occurred, whereas forgiveness is you are forgiven in lieu of your sin. So, but I'm wondering, from the Hebrew or where it came from, is there a distinct difference in terms of their definition, or are they exactly the same?
let me see if I can call this up. That's not going to help you guys at all.
Well, read to me.
If I had a penny for everything.
I know. Well, you're richer by one.
Can't see it. I'm missing one. So there are 3 different Greek words that have to do with forgiveness. Okay, Hebrew too, like one of the words in Hebrew that has to do with forgiveness is to blot out our transgressions. So, if you have a non-permanent ink pen and then you wrote something and put water on it right away, how it just, which is sometimes unhappy. I just wrote that and now what? It's gone. All of these mean forgive. I think I have this one wrong. Anyway, like this. Wait a minute. It's coming.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, thanks a lot. You look stupid. Okay. So, ex alifo.
That's why I'm not.
Okay. You have a debt or there's something wrong, and ex alifo means you cross it out. Okay? That's one word for forgive. The problem with, of course, is that it's still there, right? And I'm shocked, actually, in my lifetime, how often I've heard people say, well, I'll forgive, but I won't forget. And they say it with a lot of attitude. And boy, I don't know if you want to stick with that, right? Because with the measure you use, it gets measured back to you. And if you're saying the Lord's Prayer, forgive us as we, oh boy. Okay.
But Pastor, you might forgive, but sometimes you don't forgive, because you don't have to be vengeful about it. You can remember, but you can remember in a way that you're not,
It's the fool me once, shame on you,
Yeah.
fool me twice, shame on me.
exactly.
Yes.
Forgetting implies that you can be fooled again.
And you really can't
So
forgive, because
forgetting doesn't, unwillingness to forget doesn't necessarily mean that you hold the grudge. It just means that you're aware of a potential problem.
Yes.
Maybe that's why there's more than one kind of forgiving.
yes,
There's
could be.
forgetting, forgiving, and not forgiving.
Well, yes, for sure. And God never counsels us to do things foolishly, right? Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, doesn't mean, it doesn't matter where I walk when, right? So don't be imprudent. Yeah, okay. Fiemi, so I have a debt, and it's sort of erased, but it's hard to do because this is a really good eraser. But even though I can't read what was there, there's still ink there, right? So I remember this person, and I remember not liking them. I can't remember why, but I remember that I didn't like them.
Probably will come back.
And then this one that I can't remember. And the point of it is that it is forgiven so that you can't find, there's nothing there. And that has a lot to do with how redemption works. I had a student just this week say, Professor, can't God why did Jesus go through all of this that we read about in the New Testament? Can't he just from heaven say, hey, it's all good? And then there you go. Oh my God. Well, that is kind of the beauty of youth, though, isn't it? That you haven't actually been in situations where that doesn't work. You can't just make it all go away. Yeah, so, the redemptive work of Christ. Well, why isn't there anything here at all? Nothing. On what basis? What's that forgiveness based on?
The blood of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, the exchange. It's the exchange. So it's not that the debt didn't get paid back. It did get paid. It was somebody else that paid it for us. That's why there's nothing there. And that's why for the devil, the Bible talks about the devil not being able to go before God anymore after the incarnation and the life of Jesus. Right? Remember Job? So the devil would go and accuse. Right? That's what Satan means. It's Hebrew, accuser. So diabolo also, accuser, would accuse us before God. Well, why can't the devil go before God and accuse us of anything anymore.
There's nothing to accuse us of anymore.
Because it's all been, right, the condemnation, the judgment for what was wrong was accomplished, which is what Jesus is saying when he dies. It is finished. And so what's left for the devil to do except get in our way to keep us from, right, benefiting from what God has done. Right? Get in there. Yeah. So what was the question? Oh, yeah, remission. So this is something that's hard. It's a challenge at school too. We have lots of different church worker programs, but none of them actually require biblical languages. And so when youth workers or teachers to be, or women that want to be deaconesses, and sometimes even young men who want to be pastors, they'll take the languages at the seminary. They don't want to maybe take them at college. But when they're doing studies, Bible studies, they oftentimes get all stuck in English language issues that don't have anything to do with what the Bible's actually talking about. So English has definitions and terms and synonyms and all sorts of things that are not applicable because that's not how the original languages are working. So we try and warn them about that and help them and so forth. Okay, so if we're out Matthew, yes, everybody's at Matthew? So I'd like to warm you back up again and kind of remember where we've been. So Matthew 1 begins with the genealogy of Jesus, highlighting these two important figures from Israel's history, Abraham and David. That's Matthew's way of drawing his original audience into the text, because they like Abraham and David, and that gets us to Jesus, of the Virgin Mary and Joseph and so forth. And then the wise men come from the east, so you call up a memory of the Babylonian captivity of Israel, which is how these wise men know from Israelites that there would be a Savior coming. And then they come and ask Herod about it, and then Herod, of course, tries to kill Jesus, wants to, and so the Holy Family flees to Egypt. And this is part of Jesus reliving the whole life of Israel. He's reliving their history, only he's doing it correctly instead of incorrectly. And then, of course, they don't come back to Bethlehem to live because Herod's son is ruling, so they come to Nazareth, but that's also fulfilling a prophecy. So Jesus would be called a Nazarene. And then chapter 3, his baptism. Chapter 4, his temptations. Then we had spent some time in chapters 5, 6, and 7, all on occasion, where Jesus is sort of getting his teachings in motion. And you remember that phrase he went through, you have heard that it was said, but I say to you. So he's restoring what God had taught Israel to its original meaning and its power. That's something else that confuses our students about how Christianity works. So go back to the forgiveness a minute, my student. Why can't you just say it's all good? Well, for example, if one person injures another person, well, you could just say, okay, that's all forgiven, but what about the injuries? They're still injured, they're still hurt, there's still consequences of that. You're just going to let that go? Or does that have to be remedied, right? Or any damage that you would do to another person, there still needs to be correction of the damage. And so this kind of a simplistic idea of God's creation that he can just sort of fix whatever he wants whenever he wants. It's a very TV show kind of approach to things, right? Like Bewitched or I Dream of Jeannie or all those shows that we grew up with. Can't you just fix it? Just say abracadabra and then that's all. Nothing works like that. Right? Even things we enjoy doing, relatively, like my grandfather and father were house builders and carpenters and woodworkers, and so was I. But sometimes you just say, man, like if you ever refinished trim woodwork in a house, about 4 or 5 minutes in, you're thinking, boy, I wish you could just wiggle your nose or something. It's not that easy. And they don't think about a God being just includes a God sustaining physics of a universe that sustains life, right? You don't just interrupt the physics of the cosmos. You don't. It works a certain way, and that means there's going to be consequences for how things work. This is reality. This is real life, right? And physicists know this, and chemists, and physicians, right? People know this. Things work a certain way, and the beauty of it is that when they're not attacked or going badly, they work beautifully, don't they? When you think about human physiology, it is incomparable, isn't it, in the way it functions? And that you can reproduce, and that cells regenerate. And, you know, one person was talking about, you know, some of these atheists talk about the stars in the heavens, and that's like way too miraculous. Why can't we think about that instead of God? And then one person answered, never mind space, outer space. Look at the human eye. Just take one piece of human anatomy and think about how that works. Now, who thought that up? Right? That's not the kind of thing that just sort of accidentally starts happening, and there it is, sort of a thing. So fantastic. Okay, and so, also really important that God doesn't just interrupt or never minds how creation works, but that God also bears the burden of our failure to be responsible in His creation. Yes, that's appropriate too. And then, so you never see Jesus complaining about His work. Yeah. All right. So that was in the Sermon of the Mount, restoring the law. Oh yeah. So I asked the students, yeah, because they love this grading. Are you going to grade on a curve, Professor? And so I always ask them, do you want to go to a surgeon who was graded on a curve? Do you want a C- surgeon? Or a C- pilot next time you fly in a jet? I mean, how many things are we okay about that with? So why do you want to go into something that allows you to actually not be that good at it? Wow. Okay, so Sermon on the Mount. Now, why should we listen to Jesus? Right, we have a lot of people talking to us these days, right? Why should we listen to any of them?
Because Jesus is right.
Yes.
And how do we know? My mom told me I should listen to her because she was right. I mean, I remember hearing that.
Just because.
Well, Jesus was
He has the words
He's
of
the
eternal
Son
life.
of
Prophet, yeah, prophesy. Okay,
Throughout
so that
the Old
Yeah, it was
Testament.
prophesied to, yeah.
Yeah.
so pause a minute, and we'll kind of take a look at the particulars in these healings. What happened to all the people Jesus ever healed?
Good question.
They died.
They died. So what was the point of that exercise?
Demonstration,
A demonstration of?
His power,
Yeah.
His godliness.
But now it looks like he doesn't have enough power. If he had real power, wouldn't they stay healed? So this is another one of these easy answers for students, right? Why doesn't God just fix?
Everything.
We have a lot of problems with that old.
How about if you said, because you're here? I mean, why doesn't He fix everything? I'm being facetious, but
Sometimes that's wasted on students.
But God gives us things to enrich our life and to fix our not knowing Him or loving Him enough. So He does it for our own good.
It's another way of opening our eyes to the glory of God,
Mm-hmm.
because we are unable to see this, and so we needed this long duration of the Old Testament and promises of healing, and God's promise to do so, and fulfilling that promise. So from our human sin, we needed something very strong to get past the deceptions
Mhm.
that keep us from God.
Good. Use the word glory. I'm glad you did. So I want to keep coming back to this because of our language, our culture. In our culture, glory tends to have to do with celebrity. Yes? But there's a common root. So celebrity does come from doing what no one else can or would do, correct? You get gold medal in the Olympics, now you're a celebrity. Okay? How many people are trying to be professional actors?
Many.
Hundreds and thousands of them, right? Because they all have this dream in their heads, right, that they're gonna make it. That they'll be the next George Clooney. Remember I told you who made how much last year? Well, he didn't earn it. That's wrong. What was his income last year? $540 million. Yeah. So that's their dream, like, whoa, that would be, sure, I'll take it if that's what, put that in the call document. Yes, I don't need any 3 weeks. The answer is yes. Well, they said, well, we're just kidding. We got something better than money here, right? Okay, so, but they get there because somehow, right, they impressed, they pleased, they worked things out, and they promoted themselves to be able to draw that kind of income. Celebrity, athletes. Right?
Some would think it was a form of selling your soul.
Well, there's been books written about that too, theoretically. Okay, but all of what they can do that no one else can or would benefits them primarily, yes?
Yes.
So then we swing back to glory, to God's, how this works in God's economy. To do what no one else can or would do is to do the opposite. So though he was rich, yet for our sake the Son of God makes himself poor. Right? Jesus says in John 16 that the Holy Spirit's going to come now, and he uses the word. The Holy Spirit's going to glorify me. How's he going to do that? He's going to take what belongs to me, and he's going to give it to you. Isn't that backwards? That's what everybody's worried about. That's why we have alarm systems. Right? Nobody's taking anything of mine and giving it to anybody else. This is identity theft in reverse. Jesus says, well, I'll just give you my identity, right? In this trading places. In John 13, very interesting. When Judas Iscariot leaves to go lead the Jewish religious authorities to the place where they will arrest Jesus, Jesus says, now the Son of Man is glorified. What does that mean? That none of the disciples have any idea what he's talking about. Judas left, what you do, do quickly, and Jesus says, now the Son of Man is glorified. What does that mean?
God's plan is in motion. The whole purpose of Jesus coming to seek and save the lost is now, it's imminent, it's almost to the fruition of fulfillment, so.
Sure.
God's will.
So in history, if you're the ruler, and you know who means to betray you, and they're with you, and the time has come where they're going to execute their plan, what would you do?
Probably eliminate them.
They're the ones that get arrested, not you, and they're the ones that get executed, not you. Could Jesus have stopped Judas Iscariot? Now he's glorified. Why? Because he is letting this plan work itself out. Because really, ultimately, it's not Judas Iscariot's plan. It's God's plan. Yes? Which is a fantastic thing that Peter says in Acts 4:28, where he's describing how Herod and Pontius Pilate did exactly what God had foreordained them to do. Wow! So as just while they're thinking they're actually in charge, and they're the ones that are deciding, they're God in the world, who lives and who dies. No, you're not. God's doing it.
And even in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus shows who's in control because they all fall down.
Yeah,
And all the soldiers, boom, on the floor. And even when Peter takes his sword out, he heals Malchus's ear. So it's like
Yeah.
God is still in control.
Absolutely, always in control. Okay, so the healing. So authenticates the person of Jesus. Besides authenticating the nature of Jesus, Jesus says nice things to you, like God loves you and God forgives you and God wants you to live eternally as restored body and soul in a new heavens and an earth. He wants all these things for you, just like you read in birthday cards and stuff, right? Just like Hallmark. Big Hallmark card here from Jesus. That's our timeout. I got a birthday card from my niece. She's a piece of work. I love her. with a dinosaur on the front. It was kind of a 3D dinosaur. And you open it, it says, "I found one of those cards that talks about what happened the year you were born." Which is perfect, because I've been telling my students the advantages of having a dinosaur for a professor. Because I know what happened in history. See, I was there, so I can tell you about it. Okay, so God's will for us, though, not just in words, but in acts, right? Let me show you. Same thing with raising the dead. He did raise lots of dead people, Lazarus, right? And then they're all going to die again, because this isn't the place, right? This is not the finish line. This is the laboratory where we're figuring out how God's design and creation and his purposes and wisdom are supposed to work. And part of that's in contrast because we get to see how folly doesn't work. So in other words, God says, will you go ahead and try it your way? How's that working out for you, by the way? For 20 years, I've been trying to shepherd students. I mean, they're at the right age, yes, when sexuality is a big issue for them. I'll just use the word issue. Okay, trying to shepherd them through a biblical understanding of why we're male and female. How's this all supposed to work? Relationships between, it was great in Chicago because I had a whole semester, I had one class on gender and relationships. So that was really nice to have that kind of time.
Especially in New York. Sorry, especially in New York.
Well,
Or San
there's a lot of weird stuff going on in small towns.
Yeah.
So never mind. Okay, so, but they were becoming more and more resistant, right? They actually don't want to hear about it, kind of thing. So I was working on, I need a different way to approach this thing, and I think I found it. So just this past week, he said to them, about 70 years ago, Sigmund Freud thought he found a solution to the human problem. Right? The human problem is frustration and guilt. Right? We're frustrated because we can't get what we want, and when we do, somebody makes us feel guilty about it. And he said the reason for that is because you think that there's a God out there when there isn't, and that your idea of God, he said, you're just projecting the image of your Father on the heavens. That's how he described it. So because your father was a grouch, right, a grouchy old curmudgeon who's always trying to stop you when you're having fun, right? Your father's never happier than when you're miserable, working hard. That's perfect. Keep doing that. Okay? So when people started to discover that sexual activity was where you could have the most fun, and it's the most available, and it's the lowest cost, right? Best case, it's free often, right? I mean, even street people. Okay, so anyway, so it's free. Socioeconomic doesn't matter. Okay, so, and you don't have to feel guilty about it. So 70 years ago, talk about the cat out of the bag, right? And you've been watching, you've been around. What's been happening, yes? So there was Woodstock, and the sexual revolution, and hey, it's all love and blah, 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 and all the stuff that's flowing from it. You could have seen not just homosexuality coming down the line, but you could see all the rest, the gender confusion and changing genders and all these things going. Okay, so instead of telling the students, see how you know this is all wrong, because it's all wrong, I said, I want you to talk with each other and tell me how it's working out. 70 years after practicing what Sigmund Freud taught and advocated, how's it going? And so they're little groups, and to a group, how's it? Terrible, it's terrible. Okay, so now what does a prudent person conclude? Let's quit doing it Freud's way. This is not working. Let's back up the bus and see if we can figure out how this would work well. How many have been married 40 years or more? 50? 60? Well, close enough. Okay, so anyway, and I have a dear close friend, her parents just celebrated 70.
Wow.
And the kids are like, they didn't know anybody's that old. They get married when they were 4? They're really old. Okay, so I said, now what you want to do is go talk to these people. How do you make a relationship work like that? And guess what? It's not about what Freud was interested in. That follows the relationship. It doesn't come from it. So anyway, a different approach. How is it working out for you, kind of thing. So Jesus shows his will and his intent as he restores people to health. He shows that his promises will work. In other words, the saint, you know how often Jesus healed with a word? And oftentimes he wasn't even present, right? You can just go home. Your daughter lives, okay? So we would connect his word is the thing that heals, and not just body, but so by extension. I know he heals us in our souls because I've seen him heal people in their bodies. So that's what chapter 8's about. So if you, yeah.
So that would be the reverse of self-indulgence,
What's that? What's that?
what Jesus was all about. Because with Freud, he was basically saying, yeah, the secret to happiness is self-indulgence.
Yeah, right.
And that's what continues today with people that are unwilling to look at Christ. They still think that they have to heal themselves through self-indulgence.
That's right. Yeah, and let me, it's
Very
just
frustrating.
come to a new level because of a friend of mine, a colleague's wife, teaches in the writing center, and I won't tell you which California State University it is, but it's a prominent one. And they just had a big conference of people that work in writing centers. What's the purpose of the writing center? Students come and the teachers in the writing center tell them how to fix their papers, right, what they said, so it actually works. So you're communicating clearly, yes? Now what she heard was, you're not allowed to do that anymore. We have to respect people for how they choose to communicate with us. You can't use the word edit anymore. You want me to edit your paper? No, because that suggests that something's wrong with it. And should I correct your ink? No. Oh, no. You can't use ink. So so my friend's like, well, so what? Why do we even have this thing here? And so she was really lost. I said, well, ask them next time you have a chance, ask them if that's how it works in medicine. Can a surgeon say, well, give me I choose to call it a whatchamacallit?
Yeah.
Like, what? Which one of these is your thing? Right? Or anything else that matters. Engineering,
Why not? That's diversity.
So, but look at what this is working on though. If God's redemptive, restoring, gracious work gets accomplished through his word, where would you expect the devil to attack? If the devil can make words meaningless, then doesn't that end God's ability to save, to help? Not a surprise. And if we ever did Revelation together, after Jesus accomplishes his redemption, the devil's thrown down that dragon. He goes after the church, the body of Christ, and what's he do? He opens his mouth and sends a flood. A flood of what?
Confusion.
Words. Flood of words, right? If I get enough words out there, nobody will be able to hear the voice of the Savior. Yeah. Okay, so healings. It authenticates Jesus' character. He is the Son of God. It authenticates his will for us to heal and to restore. It authenticates his words to us because that's how he did it. Okay, so the invisible is addressed through the visible. Okay, so chapter 8, right? And so we notice he had these 3 examples of healings. So the leper, you remember, and then the centurion servant, and then Peter's mother-in-law. And then if you remember 8 verse 16 and 17, right? How many people did Jesus heal, or how many kinds of sick people did Jesus heal? 16 and 17? No, more than lots. All of them. All of them. Every disease, all of them. And how did he heal them? And so there's the fulfillment of a prophecy, 17, the second half of that verse. How did he heal them? Surely he himself, he took them on himself. He bore them in his own person. There was a movie that tried that idea out. It's been a while. The Green Mile. Do you remember the Green Mile? And the idea was, what if there was a person who could take in himself what was bothering you, right? So he could heal people, and then he'd be sick for a while, and then he'd kind of get better, and he could even, maybe he could even, well, the warden, got imprisoned wrongfully, and the warden's wife was dying of cancer, and so he goes and he trades, right, health for illness, and he was down for a while. If you remember, he was like almost like a week recovering from that, but he never does raise anybody from the dead, and he can do it for a few people, but then so isn't it interesting that people do imagine, what if this could be done? And then here's a history says, well, actually, it's happened once, right? And not just a few people's, but everybody's. He's taking them in himself. So that's part of that thing where you don't just forgive things like you just say it and it magically happens or pretends to happen, that it actually happened. Jesus bears in himself our infirmities.
And I believe that's actually instinctively desired by all people.
What is?
To have that type of saving
Oh.
in their life.
Absolutely.
Even though they ignore it when it's right in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they want to be in control if they can.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll go to 8 verse 28 now. So he crosses the sea, right? And he meets a demon-possessed man, and the demons cry out. And do you remember what happens next? So Jesus does let the demons out of the possessed man. Where do the demons go?
Pigs.
The herd of pigs. Okay, pause just a minute because we don't want to miss details. What does the fact that they were herding pigs tell you?
Means that they weren't Jews.
They weren't Jewish people, right? And so if you remember your geography, which is important,
Very distinctly not.
okay? So the Mediterranean Sea, Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, Dead Sea, Jerusalem's right about there. So this is this area, north and east of the Sea of Galilee, okay? So I'll call the Decapolis, 10 cities that were Gentile, and so nobody wants to go there, right? The Jews, no, that's bad. Okay, we would never want to go there. So who keeps going there? Jesus keeps going over there. Hanging around with these people we don't like. And so, yeah, so that's the herds of swine. And then, so the demons go into the herd of pigs, and then what happens?
They run into the water.
They run into the water and drown. And so what does that teach us? What do we learn from that? Just that little event. The demons enter the pig, boom, in the water, and they're all dead. We learn at least 3 things. Maybe more. If that's what the demons did with the pigs, what was their intent with the man?
Harm him.
To kill him, right? And when you read these texts in other accounts too, in the other Gospels, it talks about how he used to hurt himself with rocks and cut himself, right? So there's all this self-harm, but why couldn't they? Why? I mean, the demons in the pigs, bam, those pigs are dead. Why didn't they succeed with the man?
They didn't really have control. The men came to Jesus saying,
Right?
I want to heal.
There's a lot of evil going on in the history of the world, hasn't there? A lot of evil in the history of the world. How do you explain that we're still here to talk about it? Right? So there is evil in the world, but it's still, God still sets limits on, right? How much, remember Job? So the devil, you can attack Job, but you can't kill him, right? So the demons will attack a man, but you can't have his life. because that belongs to God. Yes? So that's the first thing we learn. Okay? We learn that the devil has limits set by God. 2 is we know that the demon's intent, yes? It's always to destroy. Now there's a stupid thing, isn't it? What is the point of being in control if your control means everything gets ruined?
But it's not to them, it's not to the devil that it's ruined.
Yeah, he don't understand, right? Because the devil doesn't understand, right? That there's something better than just controlling things and proving that by ruining them.
Right.
Yes? But there's a lot of that in human history, right? If I don't have the ability to do something positive, but I want to feel like I'm in control, what's left?
Falling.
I guess I'll do something negative and see how powerful I am. I see this on my campus too, and I haven't yet figured out how to.
The devil is in a constant fall away from God. And he wants to take others with him in that fall. Now, he could have chosen to be in God's heaven, but he chose to have his own freedom, not freedom, but like you said, to have his destruction away from God, and that was a preference somehow. But in that fall, he needs to have people with him because he doesn't want to be alone.
Yeah, and he doesn't want God to succeed. If I can't be God, then nobody's going to be God. Right? So you think about the history of these cults too, right? Where the cult leader's going to be prosecuted, right? They're pursuing him. And what's the cult leader always do? Is everybody commits suicide. So nobody, if I can't win, then nobody wins, sort of a thing. So very different from the nature of God, to heal and to restore and so forth. Okay. Seemed like there were more things to learn, but that's enough maybe. So now let's pick up at 9, chapter 9, verse 1. And can I have somebody read the first 8 verses, 9, 1 through 8? If you want to read, if you're willing, show me your hand. Norma, Matthew 9, verses 1 to 8.
Jesus stepped into a boat, crossed over, and came to his own town. Some men brought to him a paralytic lying on a mat. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Take heart, son, your sins are forgiven." At this, some of the teachers of the law said to themselves, "This fellow is blaspheming." Knowing their thoughts, Jesus said, "Why do you entertain evil thoughts in your heart? Which is easier to say, your sins are forgiven, or to say, get up and walk? But so that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins." Then he said to the paralytic, "Get up, take your mat, and go home." And the man got up and went home. When the crowd saw this, they were filled with awe, and they praised God, who has given such authority to men.
Okay. What's the puzzle? 4 men brought a paralytic on a mat to Jesus. And Jesus did what? Huh? Forgave his sins. That's not why we came. Is it? Wouldn't that be fun in the hospital emergency room? Ambulance shows up and here's a person, I forgive you. What? And that's free. You can go now.
And this was based on the laws of Moses, so that's why the Pharisees were like, how would you have the right to speak on who's forgiven from the laws of Moses?
Yeah, now this is where the Pharisees, they're missing. They're not reading all the law. The law of Moses includes the forgiveness of sins. Because the law of Moses includes the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur,
Yes.
the Passover,
Yes.
this whole sacrificial system.
Yes.
What the heck is the point of that? This is how it is that God's not sacrificing you. He's forgiving you because of the exchange. Okay, now, the 4 friends and the man on the mat, the paralytic. Jesus says your sins, by the way, he doesn't say, I will forgive if. He doesn't say that. There's no if and there's no will. He says your sins have been and remain forgiven. I wish we could go through the English Bibles and fix that everywhere. your sins have been and remain forgiven. Because I know we get this notion every Sunday, and I've been doing it a long time, that you're piling up sins all week, and then you can't wait. Well, you could, but Sunday morning, you finally get a chance to kind of summarize them. Oh, Almighty God, merciful Father, I poor miserable sinner. And then I say, I as a called and ordained servant, forgive you all your sins. Like, whew. Okay? Like, what if I had a heart attack right before the pastor said that? No, that's a misimpression. We're confirming truth that already exists. You're swimming around in the grace of God your whole life. Right? And this is why Jesus says, if you remain in my word. Now, there is a remedy for when the weather's too hot, which isn't what we're in the middle of, by the way. I know these Southern Californians just complain no matter what. It's 91. Oh, it's so hot. You have got to be kidding me. I have students walk around in sweatshirts when it's 96.
Well,
They're still
crazy.
cold. Some.
They're crazy.
They're crazy. Well, you're right. Okay. What are we talking about? Oh, forgive and confirmation of reality. Oh, I shouldn't have taken that little tangent.
They accused him of
Oh,
blasphemy.
swimming around. There we go. We're swimming around. Okay. Whether you're rich or poor, and this happened a lot in Chicago, you don't have to die when it's too hot. Remember, elderly people are susceptible to extreme heat, okay, and a lot of them are poor, so they didn't have air conditioners, so the news would always get on there and say, right, today it's going to be super hot, so if you're old, what should you do? Call the undertaker. No, don't do that. No.
Find a cool spot.
No. Fill your bathtub and get in it.
With cold water.
Yeah, it feels good when it's hot, right? When it's 90 and 100, that feels good. Okay, now the second part is, and don't get out. Like, well, I was in the bathtub for 20 minutes, I got bored, so I got back out again, and then I had heat stroke and died. Why did you do that? Okay. And think about trying to get dirty in the water. So there was a river near where I lived, and one super hot summer day, back in the Jurassic Park era, we didn't have air conditioning either when I grew up. So we went to the river, a friend of mine, and we stuck ourselves behind rocks. And for the whole afternoon, the water just flowed over us. It was really a lot like heaven. Now, think about that. That's a good picture of where God wants us to be. What's flowing over us? Living waters, words just keep coming and telling us what we need to hear. Now, the other thing is, how are you going to get dirty? If you reach down in the river bottom and you got some mud and you put it on there, see, now I'm dirty. Oh, wait, look again, it's gone already. It's gone again. That is how it is. From before the creation of the world, this forgiveness of God is accomplished. What we're doing is remembering it. You have been already and remain forgiven. That's what Jesus says to the paralytic. Now, did you notice the reaction of the paralytic or his friends?
No surprise.
You don't hear him object, do you? Like, wait a minute, that's not why we came. Is it possible that that's exactly why they came? They didn't come because they heard Jesus heals people. Heal people, don't heal people. I don't know. But what's really on our friend's mind, the paralyzed man, is what I've done. That's what's really bothering me. Okay? Yeah, what's really bothering people. So my daughter works for a pro-life group, and so she gets flooded sometimes with phone calls from women who, I guess you could say for the most part, have healed physiologically from an abortion. So why are they calling my daughter? Oh, they can't. What are you ever going to do about this? And nobody has an answer for them except Jesus. It's so powerful, right? So that's on people's, I'm in the middle of working with 3 families that have had miscarriages. What goes through parents' minds as soon as they find it's a miscarriage?
What did I do that causes?
God's punishing us. Something, oh my gosh. So look at that. This is so true. I don't have to walk again, but I do have to know. I can't die wondering if I'm dying in my sin. Your sins have been forgiven. Now, hermeneutic. Okay? How should we understand what's going on here? Okay? So the Bible, Matthew lets us hear the religious leaders object. No doing that. Okay? But it's not, they're not honest about it. What really is the nature of their objection? How did they make their money? What's the basis of their power? Hold you in your sin. Right? You're guilty and you're going to stay guilty, and you're only as not guilty as we decide you are. We'll decide how guilty or not you are, right? And through the history of the world, people could get rid of some of their guilt, really, if they could afford it, yes? What was one of the things that sparked Martin Luther? What couldn't he just endure anymore? The selling of indulgences. That is so opposite of what went on. Okay, so Jesus teaches us what he's doing, what God's doing all the time. Okay, from lesser to greater. Okay, so I do have authority to forgive sins. The Son of Man, I'm the Son of God and Son of Man. Therefore, I am God, and I do have authority to forgive sins. But that you may know it. Right? So which is easier? To say your sins are forgiven? I could say that. How are you going to prove it's not true? How are you going to prove me wrong? Okay? Or I could say this person, rise up and walk. Which is easier to do? We'll say the sins are forgiven thing. But that you may know that the Son of Man has power on earth. He heals them. So the lesser to the... If I can do physical things, then I can do spiritual things. So that's how we know. And this is going on all through the Bible, these examples from lesser to greater, right? Or from greater to lesser. Romans 8:28, he who did not spare his own son. God didn't keep his one and only beloved son back and say, well, we'll have to figure this out some other way, because I'm not putting him through all of this. And Jesus himself does not count his divine nature something to cling to. That's the opposite of his nature. Isn't it fantastic that one of the essential, maybe the essential characteristic of God's nature is love? He couldn't possibly be selfish with himself. He couldn't possibly spare himself and leave us to suffer. So he trades it out. So God, who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also with him give us all things? So why don't we always feel like that's what's happening in our lives? Because we have our own opinions about what we want our life to look and feel like, rather than try and learn from what God's doing in our lives, yes? So I heard President Gibson say that last week, right? No is an answer from God, yes? Yeah, you know where I learned that? From my parents, who said no a lot. So, okay, they work for God. I guess that's it. No's good. No's important. Okay, well, what a profound thing to think of, right? If God saved your life, body and soul, time and eternity, at the expense of his son, how could he be getting the little things wrong? Right? But we tend to make conflict for ourselves over the bigger things or the little things. Everything, especially the little things. You know, and my wife, she makes fun of me. You know, I set the table and I kind of go back around, you know, and get him. That's a little crooked there. And so sometimes now she sits down and something will be, and she'll look at me. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to look. I know. Thank you. And the older you get, right? Oh my gosh. That's why you have to. God gave us children and grandchildren and great grandchildren, right? To keep you flexible. They don't care how you want things. These little kids, they're just making a mess everywhere, and that's all funny. Okay, so the healing of the paralytic, and he rose and departed. Good. 9 verse 9, through 13. Another volunteer to read, please? Raise a hand and I'll, please.
As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners."
Okay, thank you. So lots of things to unpack here. First of all, anything remarkable about verse 9? Jesus sees a man named Matthew and says, "Follow me," and he does. Anything remarkable about that?
No question, he just goes.
Gone. So I want you to try it this week. I know that there are IRS offices around. I want you to walk in there and say to somebody, "Follow me."
Oh, sure.
Why?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you know why it was? Why did Matthew get up immediately and leave?
Oh, he must have heard about Jesus ahead of time.
Absolutely. You're right. The word about Jesus spread like wildfire. Right? Nobody's heard of anything like this before. Yes? Okay. So it's happy news and it's spreading fast. Okay, yep. Other reasons?
Probably felt the need.
The need acutely. Yes? So when you're in a waiting room, especially emergency, right? If you're in the emergency waiting room and there are lots of people there and they come out and call your name, you're like, well, I don't know. I was right in the middle of this magazine.
Take someone else.
Yeah, no, I'm out of here. Right, so absolutely. And in particular for Matthew. So Matthew's real name was Levi, so he's Jewish. So what's working in Matthew's life? What's on his mind that makes him a perfect candidate for Jesus' call?
He's like a Jewish attorney.
He's an outcast.
Yes, he's an outcast. Did you see the billboard of the woman that's the lawyer? Superwoman, super lawyer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there's one now, there's one, she's way down by Irvine now,
Yeah.
and it says on him, "I'll give him hell."
You should have seen the first one.
So I prayed for her this morning, because Jesus said, the way you dish it out, it comes back. So you don't want to be giving anybody hell. I would like to meet her though, I just gotta, man, superwoman. I don't know if I've met a superwoman, except my wife. This is being recorded. Superwoman. Yes, so, because he's working for the Romans, the Jews hate him. Because he's working for the Romans don't respect him, right? You're just a fink. So there's no way forward for me, not with my own people, not with the Roman Empire, not with God. So what are my options? Zero. So when the doctor calls, he's gone. The next thing remarkable, verse 10, and it seems very matter of fact. So Jesus walking by calls Matthew, and then?
Many of the
Other
other tax
people.
collectors came.
Yeah, all of a sudden we're at his house. He's having a party.
Yeah.
Right, he texted everybody, "Hey, everybody come over to my house right now." They all came over. And
there's
who's
other
there?
sinners there.
Yeah, who's there, right?
Yeah.
Other tax collectors, he's got friends. They don't know how we're gonna fix this problem either. Or sinners, other people held in their guilt. Zacchaeus, there's another tax collector. Same thing, isn't it? The Philippian jailer. So he doesn't have the same kind of problem as a Jewish working for the Roman government. But after, his conversation with Paul after the earthquake and the whole thing, baptized, next thing, they're at the jailer's house having a meal. Okay, something powerful there, right? I'm going to eat with you. Okay, then the next thing we learn, verse 11, who else is there? What are they doing there?
That's a small world.
They're following Jesus to try to find some flaw.
Trip them up.
Yeah, right? So they're like all of those cameras everywhere now, like, oh, they're watching you kind of thing, right? Okay. What's the answer to the question? Verse 11. It's fun to answer questions. Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?
Because the sinners need saving.
Well, Jesus answers himself, doesn't he? The healthy don't need a physician, but the sick, okay? Why don't they eat with tax collectors and sinners?
They're too righteous.
Yeah.
Full of hot air.
And it's in their minds, right? They really do believe that they have to make their own way to reconcile with God, yes.
Right.
And I just saw a piece of art, it's on our campus, I think I gotta speak to this, where the artist describes what he or she painted, and it's something about our making our peace with God. That's not how it works. We don't make our peace with God. We can't. God makes his peace with us and wakes us up to it, right? Regenerates us in it. Okay, so we're back on our way in Matthew. I hope you read and read and read and keep reading, swimming around in this word. It's this living water. Don't get out, because it's hot out here outside of the grace of God. And we'll use the time. I'll be back on the 17th, actually. The 10th and the 17th. So if you want to, avoid me, there you go, 10th and the 17th. But we're not going to, right? Are you with me? We're not going to be all in angst about this waiting. We're going to take this time waiting to reflect on how God surely will provide for us as he has always done.
When you mention taxes, there's a debt to be paid. And unto sin, there's a debt to be paid.
Mhm.
And Jesus died for the ransom, and all debts were paid. And that's probably why I guess they sense, and you have to have faith, and faith to be healed. And so I believe that that's why and possibly everybody has a debt to be paid. And Jesus is a debt remover.
Yeah.
So they're kind of flocking around him to get a miraculous blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Very interesting too is that who would know any better about debt than
Yeah.
somebody who has to take money from you?
Right.
Yeah, Sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah.
Okay, so while we're waiting for Pastor to come visit, and while he's here, we're going to rest in the grace of God who loves us and provides for us beautifully. I know I'm grateful that you've been vacant for a while. Not looking forward, actually, to. I'm not getting in the way. I'm not calling these people saying, hey,
Is that one? No.
Well, wait a minute, now we have something to think about.
So let's go with God's blessing. Dear Lord Jesus, thank you again for your everlasting and inestimable kindness and grace toward us, your goodness, your patience with us, and now be with these your children as they wait for you to bring to them their next shepherd. Bless the man they've called with his deliberations and contemplations during this time as he thinks about what your will is for him. And so let this be a time of growing up into the absence of frustration and the appreciation of a time to wait in the midst of your bountiful providence towards us in goodness. I've been watching these people here, Lord, take up the work of ministry and thrive at it and do well and enjoy it, just as last Sunday showed us. So bless them in their work in the church and those in the school and their outreach, their desire to be ambassadors for you in their communities and among their loved ones and friends, and to me on my campus too, until I see them again, for Jesus' sake. Amen. All right.